What is something that sounds safe but actually isn't? Dryer lint. Clear your dryer vents, people. About a month ago I hired one of those we clean out the dryer vent lines people. Super nice guy, really knew what he was talking about. So he tells me it'll be about $70 and I give it the go ahead because I'm not in the mood to climb on the roof. It vents up and out and convince myself that I know what I'm doing. So he gets to work, super clean, wasn't yelling on his phone the whole time. Takes about an hour and I pay the dude. He then tells me that his vacuum, big shop vac, clogged a couple of times and he was sorry for the delay. There was so much lint blocking the vent it clogged a shop vac multiple times. It was then I realized the previous owner never cleaned the vents. On the plus side the dryer works way better and the house doesn't smell like lint after drying clothing. Oh, and my crap didn't burn down in the middle of the night killing me and my family. So that's a plus. How often do you need to get those types of vents cleaned? I've only ever had a dryer with the little drawer that pulls out and you clean after each load. Going in a car without a headrest on your seat. It's not just a pillow for comfort. What's the consequence of not? Whiplash? You'll get one anyway, but at least your neck will not snap all the way back because the headrest is stopping you from doing so. Four-wheelers. So many injuries and deaths from people who don't respect what they can do and just how easy they are to topple. My cousin actually just died from this. He was 11 and four-wheeling by himself and it toppled and trapped him in a little bit of water and he drowned. I didn't know him that well, but screw dying like that. Holy crap dude, my condolences. Grain silos. People die every year because they explode with static electricity. Yes. People don't realize how dangerous tiny particulate matter is. My mind was blown when I saw what design precautions went into designing a factory that made powdered coffee creamer. It's treated like nitroglycerine and yet you put that crap in your coffee. In Savannah, Georgia a sugar factory exploded due to this I believe. Walking up or down stairs. Broke both my ankles tripping down the last 3 steps 2 weeks ago. Doctors were confused as to how I did both. No idea. Trip, pain, headbutt the radiator. Hey, don't feel bad. Tripped and fractured my tibial plateau. Basically my knee. I've not been able to walk for over a month fricking stairs. Everybody should rightfully know that Tid Pod challenges were unsafe, but the more innocent one was the cinnamon challenge. Cinnamon powder does not mix with water, so the instant reflex from the body was to cough to get rid of this unknown substance, but the inhale of air to cough with could cause you to inhale the cinnamon into your lungs, and that could cause serious harm or even death if severe enough. I had an adult challenge me to this when I was like 11. Of course I did it. I aspirated the cinnamon and coughed and threw up for like 20 minutes. No amount of drinking liquids helped, and I honestly thought I was going to die. The person who challenged me laughed the whole time. It was very cruel, and as an adult now, I cannot even fathom challenging a child to do that. And this is proof that some people stop maturing emotionally after middle school. Who challenges a child to do a cinnamon challenge? From my friend who works in government studying accidents, duck boats. Having used to go to Branson almost yearly, can confirm. Every other year it seemed that there's a new call to shut them down after an accident. Telling your hour department how you really feel about your boss. A lot of people get fired, not because of what they have done, but because of what they say. Keep your mouth shut unless you absolutely have to. My boss was denying FMLA and they still kept him. He pressured people requesting paternity leave not to take it because he didn't think men needed it. Using a dull knife rather than a sharp one. Really like this one. It sounds so safe. Well, it's not sharp, so it won't cut as easily, but it's so dangerous because you have to press harder and have way less control. The cuts with a dull knife are also quite terrible. Half crush wound, half cut wound. Don't put your feet up on the dashboard of a car when you're riding in the front seat. It doesn't matter if you're wearing a seatbelt, your kneecaps are gonna go through your skull if you get in an accident. I used to do it all the time when I was younger. Now I want to scream every time I see it. Even if your knees miss your head, your femurs and hips will be more or less irreparable. Injuries incompatible with life. Driving. Seriously. A news story near me lately shook me, even though I know it's not the first time this has happened, but a driver swerved into oncoming traffic and got into a head-on accident. There was only one guy in either car, but they both died. It makes me sick that you can do everything right while driving and easily get killed by someone else at any time. I used to have to say this to my wife while driving. She'd undo her seatbelt to sit more comfortably or take the baby out of the car seat because he was crying. That's unsafe. Just drive more carefully. I always drive carefully, but I don't know about the other guy. It took a while, but she came around. Mouthing off to a stranger. You never know how crazy they might be or if they have a weapon. Just bite your tongue. I barely honk on the road when dealing with a bad driver/pedestrian. I'm terrified of road rage. I live in a major city and shootings have recently become very common on the expressways here. It sucks and I try to avoid anyone driving questionably. Safes. They will bloody well crunch your fingers if you're not careful. You're telling me safes isn't safe. The safe is safe, but your fingers aren't. Cleaning a cat's litter box with bleach. Don't mix ammonia and bleach. You'll be committing a war crime. I did this by accident once. Didn't realize the cleaning spray I was using had bleach in it. The litter box started smoking and I was like That's weird. Then a second later I realized what I did and threw the box outside while holding my breath. Felt like an idiot. Flushable wipes. They can actually clump together into big balls that clog your drain or worse cause issues for the town's plumbing way down the line. We had a lift station cleaned out. In the bottom of a 30-foot silo there was a cake made of wipes, tampons, and condoms. This cake was so dense that a person could stand on it. This was obstructing the pumps at the bottom of the silos which, in a worst case scenario, would overflow into the adjacent river. Stop flushing stupid stuff down the toilet. There really needs to be more awareness to the fact that condoms should not be flushed down the drain. I mean they are literally built to not break under stress in a damp place. Sounds like such a dothing in retrospective. The safety dance. But don't let me dissuade you. You can dance if you want to. You can also leave your friends behind. But if they don't dance, and if they don't dance, they ain't no friends of mine. If I'm honest, fair rides, you'd think it'd be safe. It's surrounded by a lot of people, so if anything were to happen help would be there straight away, and there's all these safety precautions, but the amount of things that have gone wrong way too often is scary. I worked with a guy who will never get on those rides. He said he was in high school mechanics and also took a college mechanics course. He said every project the class ever did there were always some parts left over that had been forgotten. Just think how many times those rides are taken down and back up. Permanent rides are much safer than fair rides. Much better maintenance and construction. Bison. Like the wild big cow looking animals. I grew up around them, and I see too many tourists in Yellowstone going to take a selfie with one. Those big motherfuckers will kill you without batting an eye. I saw a guy approach a large bull, carrying their child followed closely by the mother with camera. Honestly looked like he was planning to place the kid on its back for a picture. Fortunately the bison started walking away. On that same trip a bison walked through our campsite. We got in the van and watched it poke its head into our tent, then scratch its chin on a post inches from the window. Very cool to see a calm one that close. Also sobering knowing a 2,000 pounds animal could say hello again at any moment. Astonishes me people think wild animals are like fancy toys. Thank God their kid wasn't killed. Making pottery. Let me explain. The colors are all from metals, and except for iron they are all toxic to some degree. The best glazes set off a Geiger counter. Silicosis, emphysema, and cancer are occupational hazards from the dust. The ingredient that makes pottery glazes dishwasher safe is willastonite, which is actually more dangerous than asbestos. You're dealing with something that can make an airtight seal, contains water, and is going to be heated. Pottery exploding in the firing process is a common problem. Speaking of firing, we are talking high temps. You can light a cigarette by taping the tip on the outside of the kiln while it's running. That's already assuming you're using insulating brick. Toxic gases can come from the pottery during firing, and most kilns are indoors. Firing with gas or wood burners can pose a carbon monoxide hazard. All the bending over and physical work can lead to arthritis. Making and firing pottery improperly can poison the end user. Storage of toxic and radioactive and carcinogenic materials is usually subparagraph. You also gotta watch out for ghosts. Leaving the house. It's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out your front door. Interacting with a giant anteater. Their claws can kill a jaguar without much issue. Anteaters are my favorite animals. But I agree, don't mess with a giant anteater. Although Tamandas are fine. Joining r/Wall Street Butts just to browse. Watch ape long enough, become ape. Monk see monk do. Tylenol. Great. Looks like I'll man up through this headache. It's safe in the recommended doses and timing. The acronym for the Securing Antarctica's Environmental Future Organization. SEAF. Sure, it sounds like safe, but it isn't safe. Man, I'm bummed this comment didn't take off. That crap's funny. Well, I don't know if this actually sounds safe, but trampolines. People think by putting the netting around them, etc. that you won't get hurt. Think again. You are one awkward landing from lots of potentially life-changing injuries. I have personally gotten to view the inside of an adult foot/ankle because of a trampoline. I used to work at Sky Zone, and it's unreal how susceptible people can be to injury, especially if you're inexperienced. Landing stiff-legged can invert your leg, ankles can be twisted, arms can be dislocated. Trampolines are fun and good exercise, but overconfidence can easily lead to injury. Remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer. Putting out an engine fire with a bucket full of water. As someone who knows very little about engines, why? Pregnancy. A woman's body is designed to perform this function, and yet you, and the thing you are growing inside you, can die or kill you. So true. Both my first son and I would not have lived if it wasn't for medicine and C-sections. Natural birth advocates really need to remind themselves what happened before medicalization of childbirth. People died. Mothers, babies, hemorrhage, eclampsia, child too big to physically get out, placenta abrevia, so many ways to die. When I was born I had the cord around my neck, and my dad assumed that meant I was already dead. It had been common knowledge in his generation that could kill a baby, but nobody ever mentioned to him that modern obstetrics can fix it. He was literally opening his mouth to tell my mom the bad news when the doctor said, "Wait a minute, Mrs. Bunny, don't push," and disentangled me. Riding a horse. Those frickers will kill you in a heartbeat. A good friend of mine's an eventer and dressage rider. He doesn't know a single person who rides at his level who hasn't done it with broken ribs. X is a dressage rider. She was always covered in bruises from getting slammed into the wall or something because the horse got spooked while she was brushing it or some crap. Driving. Doing 100 down the freeway in a metal can powered by highly flammable combustion liquids, and motherfuckers still have the nerve to cut you off. And then there's the Germans. Driving 240 km/h, and there's still one guy behind you flashing his headlights signaling you to move over to let him pass. Oh damn, I never rode in a car in Germany, so I didn't know it was like that. This actually happened to me in Sicily a few days ago. Our taxi was driving us to the Palermo airport, and he was only going about 150 km/h, but he did that the whole way and was getting insanely close to cars in front of him and flashing his lights for them to move. He checked his WhatsApp at 1.2. I literally almost had a panic attack. So scary. Anesthesia. I don't feel like people have enough respect for how complicated and dangerous it is to put people to sleep. I have patients all the time ask me to put them under for routine procedures that don't require sedation, and I always think to myself that you wouldn't be asking that if you knew how much training and monitoring and intensive effort it takes to keep someone asleep safely without them stopping breathing. I didn't realize how dangerous it was till I almost went into respiratory arrest on the table. I started thrashing around. They immediately stopped the procedure until I was stable again. They ended up intubating me and doing some other stuff. Not really sure what all happened, I was asleep. All I can say is I'm thankful to still be here and not have suffered any major lasting effects. Holding your breath while scuba diving. If you ascend from depth with your airways closed while breathing compressed air, you are at extreme risk of rupturing a lung, damaging your alveoli, and/or suffering from other lung overexpansion injuries. This is because when you take a breath under significant external pressure, the air you breathe in much more dense, and so your lungs can get more of it per breath. But as the pressure acting on you lessens, the air in your lungs expands, and if your airways aren't open, your lungs will be damaged from the overpressure. It is an easily avoidable risk, but if ignored, the consequences are often deadly or at least permanently damaging. It's perfectly fine if you take a breath at the surface, dive down and come back up. The air gets compressed and then expands back to the same size. The problem happens if you take a deep breath from that scuba tank in 6 feet or so of water and then come back to the surface without exhaling. The air in your lungs has now expanded 20%. Pop. Just keep breathing/blowing bubbles and you'll be okay. This entire thread is slowly becoming the Lonely Island song YOLO. You out to look out. Garage door springs. I remember there was a thread about what is the most dangerous DIY project you can attempt yourself. Garage door spring was number 1, followed by using a chainsaw. Tons of pros on there and everyone agreed. I view my garage door spring with caution now. It's a coiled killer. Seriously, shout out to /r/home improvement, because I was looking into adjusting the tension on my garage door and had literally no idea it was dangerous until doing some reading on there. Decided to hire a professional when it's time to do the work. A blind date. Call me old fashioned, but blind people scare me. They can read our minds. I fogged the crap out to my glasses laughing at this. Earbuds. They'll put you at risk of early onset hearing loss. The way your 80-year-old grandpa yells "what did you say?" at 150 decibels is gonna be us at 40, because we can't stop blasting Sicko Mode by Travis Scott at full volume straight into our ears. It is not the earbuds that are the problem, it is the volume at which the user sets the earbuds to be. In Europe it's regulated, and you can't hear it really loud. I've got some Sennheiser HD 202, which I love, from Argentina, and they are massively loud compared to the European HD 4.50 from the same brand. I guess noise cancelling and regulations help a bit with this issue. Retractable dog leashes don't give you that much control and can potentially cause serious injuries to you or your dog. As a former dog owner, I cannot agree more. Those things are lethal. The eyes of potatoes, if they've sprouted any green, can be poisonous. Potatoes are members of the nightshade family and are the most common cause of solanine poisoning in humans. Their green stuff can cause vomiting, diarrhea, headaches, paralysis of the central nervous system, and even death in rare cases. Use that weird thing on your peeler to gouge out those eyes. A man ate a potato. This is what happened to his brain. Loving unconditionally. If you can't love unconditionally, condition lovingly. My hair is like silk. Thank you for the life advice. Sitting down all day. Isn't standing all day also bad? Staying in one place for hours is bad. Unless you're sleeping, but not too much. Nobody will see this 4,000 comments down, but opening up a court monitor/TV. Those old TVs contain a part that can hold a lethal charge, even after being unplugged for about a month. Capacitors in general, I think. Yup. Opening a power supply for computers is extremely dangerous, and that's why it's strongly recommended not opening one unless you're a trained professional. A charge doesn't last for just a month either. It can hold 4 years and sometimes decades. When I was in it, my teacher made sure all the students knew this for lessons that we took shortly after. Moderately oldish buildings. I became an asbestos inspector for my job, and let me tell you, the more you find out about asbestos and what we put it in, the less time you want to spend in any structure built prior to the mid-80s. And that's just asbestos, not even going into other hazardous building materials like lead. Asbestos truly was an almost miraculous building material. It's cheap to acquire, and adding it to almost any construction material made that material better at its job. It's also insidiously easy to get complacent around it. Unless you're breathing insane amounts of it, you wouldn't know it's there unless you had knowledge beforehand. It doesn't smell. You won't feel queasy or nauseous. It just seems like normal dust, with the caveat that if you breathe too much or are just unlucky, there's a chance that the latter half of your life will be spent in absolute misery if one of the several medical conditions associated with asbestos doesn't just kill you within a few years of showing symptoms. If an asbestos report says that there isn't any asbestos in an old building, it means they just didn't find it. If it says that there is asbestos, they probably didn't find it all. If they say the asbestos was abated, they probably didn't get it all. Source: tore down old buildings for years. Never met an asbestos inspector or abatement crew that impressed me with their competence. Alcohol. What's screwed up about alcoholism, among other things, is how socially acceptable it is to get crap-faced every night. So long as you're holding down a job and not getting multiple DUIs, a lot of people act like it's no big deal. Plus there's all those jokes you see from parents about mommy needs her wine while holding up those big novelty glasses. Hoda and Kathy Lee used to drink on the Today Show every morning at like 10 AM. Some workplaces have mandatory company outings that really just entail going to a bar and trying to talk about anything besides work. I'm an alcoholic, and it doesn't bother me to be around others drinking, but for some it can make sobriety really difficult. Livings with your parents. I had to move back in for various reasons, and my mental health and well-being are declining fast. Bet moved out and will die before I ever get into that situation. Pregnancy/childbirth. So many don't seem to know how many things can and commonly does take place with that. Sleeping. Many people have sleep apnea who are not just overweight, old, smoke, or unhealthy. Snoring is the big indicator. You stop breathing dozens of times an hour through the night until your body responds by waking you up, and it repeats again. Not only does it slowly starve your brain of oxygen and put tremendous strain on your heart over years, but can cause such excessive drowsiness and sleep deprivation you can fall asleep while driving. If your partner says you snore a lot, or you are always tired despite getting regular sleep, get it checked out. Regular being sleepy when driving is not normal, nor is always falling asleep when you sit and watch TV, read, or just relax for a few minutes. I have severe sleep apnea and snored like crazy since I was a child and had several inconclusive sleep studies. I wasn't diagnosed until I was 20 and went to the dentist. They put me on laughing gas and I promptly fell asleep. The second I woke up, my dentist looked me dead in the eye and told me, if you do not get treatment for your sleep apnea, you will be dead by 30. After having a sleep study, I found out I was having 55 interruptions, periods of 10 or more seconds without breathing, per hour, with my average interruption lasting 27 seconds. I was exhausted all of the time and my quality of life was terrible. Now I have the energy to do the things I love doing. I'm very thankful that I fell asleep in the dentist's chair. Replacing or adjusting garage door springs. This one doesn't sound perfectly safe, I admit, but the ratio of perceived safety to actual holy crap, this can end super badly is there for sure. When your parents say it's okay, we won't be angry. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Going to Brazil. I actually think it's exactly the opposite. Brazil is coming to us. Invading Russia in the winter. In what universe does that sound safe if you are not a general/world leader from over 70 years ago? Taking the sounds part of the title literally, I'd say silence in a forest. It sounds like a cliche from horror stories or creepypastas, but it's a commonly regarded fact that when a forest is silent, there's an apex predator around. This is commonly associated with animals like tigers, but it means the wildlife in the forest ran away or tried to hide its presence to avoid the danger. So while silence doesn't seem too big a deal, in a forest it means there's something nearby that you probably don't want to be dealing with. Having spent a lot of my life in forests, I have found that the apex predator that was most often causing a behavioral change among the critters was me. Opening a box with a box cutter. Someone I know works at a place where they have a "it's been this many days since our last accident" sign, and after about 184 days with no accidents, they had to change it to 0 days because someone was careless with a box cutter. I have a ceramic one that I really like. It's sharp enough to cut packing tape and break down boxes, but it's almost impossible to cut yourself. It also retracts automatically when you release it, so if you drop it, the blade won't be out. Mine's Slice brand, but there are probably similar ones from other companies.